Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Catholic Education Foundation podcast. This podcast will feature Deacon Greg Gitschier, Deacon at St. Patrick Parish and Chaplain for the Louisville Metro Police. And as always, along with the Catholic Education Foundation President, Mr. Rich Lecklider. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
How's it going?
Fantastic.
Well, Deacon Greg, oh my goodness, welcome to the show. So we were talking a little bit here off air. Boy, do we have some stories, Rich.
We got some good stuff.
Wow. Our listeners are in for a treat. You're going to enjoy our podcast here today. Before we get into Greg's amazing life and career, Rich, Greg was an honoree at the 2023 Salute to Catholic School Alumni Dinner event, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. He was awarded our Community Service Award, which is one of our highest honor, and it tries to recognize someone in the community, Catholic or not, who's done sort of above and beyond work in their lives for the benefit of others. And we couldn't have been more proud to honor Greg a couple years ago with that wonderful, prestigious award. Congratulations again.
So, Greg, you were originally born in Louisville.
Correct.
And then moved to New York, and then I guess you moved back to Louisville. But tell us about your early years.
Well, I was born at St. Joe's Hospital,
okay,
right there, old neighborhood. And my dad joined the FBI. He was a U of L quarterback for 4 years, and then he coached at quarterback for 4 years. Recruited some guy named Johnny Unitas, but no one probably remembers him.
Yeah,
I did.
Okay,
But,
all right.
The great story about that is not only did he recruit him and coach him, many years later when Johnny got inducted to the NFL Hall of Fame, he picked my dad to induct him. So
Did he really?
that tells you how close they were. But anyway, so
Cool.
so he got transferred up to New York City, and so we lived up there for about 15 years. And in high school, he got transferred back to Louisville, and so I came back in my sophomore year into Louisville. And he said, son, you know what? New York is so expensive, I don't have enough money to send you to Catholic school. So I could have benefited from the great Catholic Education Foundation back in those days. But he said, I just don't have the money to send you. So I went to a local high school, but it was great. It was Westport High School, which is no longer there. But when I was there, it was the largest senior class in the state, and that's why they built Ballard. And then they turned Westport into middle school.
Okay.
But anyway, it was a great experience, and I played some football and was lucky enough to go to U of L and play, as my father did, and then my older brother played out there too for Lee Corso. So
who was your coach when you were at U of L?
Well, I was hoping it was Lee Corso, but he left that Christmas before I started. So I played for a guy named T.W. Alley, who was the offensive line coach, and then Vince Gibson came in.
Okay,
and played for Vince a little bit. So
I remember that.
Not the best days of U of L football, but
but still pretty cool.
Still close to my teammates.
What position did you play?
I was a wide receiver.
Wide receiver. That's pretty cool. All right, so you earned an undergraduate degree in police administration in 1981 from U of L, which led to your career in police work. Talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I earned it in 78 for the police administration. Then as a police officer, I went back for my master's degree.
Got it. Okay,
and that's confusing.
fair enough.
And I graduated 81 with my master's degree.
Got it.
In public administration. So anyway, that and 6 years as a police officer in the west end of Louisville, which is good for a 21-year-old kid. You learn fast how to
your
roll.
Teeth.
Yeah, that's Cane Run Road, Algonquin Parkway area, rode that area.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience. So with those 6 years and a master's degree, fortunately I was a candidate to to be hired by the U.S. Secret Service as an agent. And, God, put me in the right spot at the right time, and I got hired in 1983.
Okay.
And I was off and running.
So when you're 21 years old, what kind of police work were you doing? Were you just kind of on the beat?
Yeah. My beat was literally the whole city of Shively was inside of my beat, but I would go down Dixie Highway towards the west end on to Algonquin Parkway.
Yep.
I'd take a left. I would actually go to 41st and Gibson. People don't realize Jefferson County went that far. Then I'd come up Cane Run Road, Lake Dreamland, Lee's Lanes, Rockford Lane area. Yeah. Very busy.
So those days, was the Secret Service was that on your mind? Is that something you always wanted to go do?
Well, I didn't. My dad was a very successful FBI agent, but I didn't want to follow him and be the kid that got hired because of his dad. And that did bug me. I didn't want to, I know how you got hired. So he always said, if you don't go FBI, go Secret Service. And that was planted the seed in my brain. when I was on the police dive team, a president, I think it was a president or vice president, came to Louisville, and they needed divers to check the Belle of Louisville for bombs on the bottom in the river.
Okay.
So I saw my first Secret Service agents, I think then, when they were like, making sure that there was nothing attached to the hull. Of course, the Ohio River is so dirty, you couldn't see anything.
I was going to say, I don't know if I'd want to get in there, period.
Yeah. But anyway, that was my first time I saw Secret Service agents. But yeah, I was very fortunate.
So you were part of a dive unit?
Yeah, the police dive
Metro?
team. Mm-hmm. Well, it was Jefferson County Police then. We had our own boats.
Oh, that's right. It was city county.
It was
cops.
city and county.
Yeah.
When I was a cop in uniform, it was city county before it merged. But we had a really good dive team. We were federally funded, and we actually dove all over the state because we were federal. We'd get to practice in all the lakes, but I think we did about 15 body recoveries in 5 years.
Wow.
That's from homicides or people jumping off a bridge or accidents or whatever. Yeah.
Did you ever go down and look for Muhammad Ali's gold medal?
I did not do that. I looked for a lot of guns.
I think that's what I would have done.
I looked for a lot of guns.
The 2nd Street Bridge, that's a famous story.
That is a story.
So we may have the years wrong here.
That's
but
okay.
1983, you end up going to Secret Service school?
Yeah. You go to the school for about a year. 2 schools, actually.
Was that intense, or was that?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously what we did, the first school was just to become a federal agent because Secret Service does a lot of investigations. People don't realize that we were created by Abraham Lincoln. Unfortunately for him, we were created as investigators, not bodyguards. But we were, after the Civil War, the Confederates counterfeited Yankee money, and the Yankee counterfeited the Confederate money. So it was like, 3 out of every $1 were counterfeit. So he had to break up the counterfeit operation. So if you remember the old movie Wild Wild West, where the 2 agents get on the horse from D.C. and they go across the country and they break up counterfeiting plants. So that's how we actually got started. So we're investigators first, and then we became bodyguards when McKinley was assassinated in the early 1900s.
So you are Secret Service as part of the Treasury Department?
We were Treasury until Homeland Security happened, and then they took us out of Treasury, which we liked being Treasury because we felt like, we were in a great place, and we felt like we were kind of an elite unit, and I really think we were, in all honesty. But then when they put the Homeland Security pot together, they just mixed everybody in there, and so we lost a lot of our identity there. But yeah, we worked counterfeit cases, fraud cases, threats on the president, that kind of stuff. And I got involved with some really good cases when I was assigned to L.A. and Hawaii that were, like on the president's desk type of cases.
So when it comes to Secret Service, you talk about, you hear about like Navy SEALs, and you got to be the elite of the elite. And then is it tough to get into the Secret Service schools? It's tough to become an agent. Not everybody makes it, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I got on, we had around 1,700 agents worldwide, which isn't a lot. To put it in comparison, the FBI probably had 11 or 12,000.
Okay.
So it's like it's. I always felt like when they compared us, it's like comparing the Marines to the Army. The Army is very big and bureaucratic and slow moving, and the Marines are like fast moving, hard hitting. That's kind of like the Secret Service was, and that's how we did our investigations. We were very aggressive. We were smaller units, and but they made a perfect counterfeit $100 bill in the 90s, and because of where I was assigned, I was one of the agents that worked. It's called the super note. That's why all of our money has color on it, because of that one super note was perfect for a counterfeit.
Interesting.
So America had to do something about it, and that's why you have mag strips, and you have all these fibers, and you have all these things in there, watermarks. Yeah, because of that super $100 bill.
That's fascinating. All right, so you were assigned full-time to protect President Reagan and his family. I mean, the stories have to be off the charts there. But what was President Reagan like up close and off camera?
Very, very personable. And it's not like I was around him all the time, because we all do our midnight shifts and day shifts and go out with his family, members and stuff. But the times I was around with him, he couldn't have been any nicer. And matter of fact, I was spending a lot of time with Maureen Reagan, because she was a UN ambassador for Women Against Violence. So I was single. I guess I can't single. And so they said, okay, you single guys, you got to go with Maureen, because she goes all over the world. So I'd go around with her, and she introduced me to her father one time as my agent from Kentucky. And so whenever he saw me, he called me Kentucky.
Got it.
Being a Louisville football player, that hurt a little bit, but still, it was quite an honor. But he was so personable. He was an actor. He loved telling jokes. He loved cutting up with us, and I never had the pleasure, but guys said that he'd come in and play poker with them sometimes up at Santa Barbara Ranch, where his little ranch was. I never had that pleasure.
Now, were you located in the White House some, or just kind of wherever he was?
We travel wherever we were assigned. We had a place in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. area that we would spend a lot of time. We probably spent maybe 10 days a month in the White House. And then we had the Western White House, which was Santa Barbara Ranch in L.A., and then he moved to Bel Air. He had an office in Beverly Hills. So it's kind of like a Western White House for a while. Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, so you protected other presidents as well after Reagan. So how many did you end up protecting in a whole?
Counting Reagan, there'd be 5 more, so a total of 6.
Holy, that's crazy.
And those are temporary assignments. President Reagan's family was a little over 4-year assignment.
Okay.
Full time.
Explain to us what the temporary means.
That's when the shifts need some relief. Like, so when I was in L.A., President Ford would spend half his year in Palm Springs, California, and half his year in Vail, Colorado, which was actually Beaver Creek. And sometimes those guys would get sick, or they were short a couple people.
Sure.
So they'd say, hey, L.A. field office, when I was in investigations, we're looking for some volunteers to come spend 2 weeks in Vail, Colorado. My hand went straight up.
Yeah.
So I got to go to Vail for 2 weeks and
pick
ski.
Me, coach.
Yeah. So that was a temporary assignment.
Okay,
2 weeks.
gotcha. All right.
And we did that with President Carter. We did that with President Bush and former President Bush, both Bushes actually.
Both Bushes.
Yeah.
Okay.
President Clinton, when I told you we went to Jerusalem and then got invited into the PLO.
You got to give this story. The listeners got to hear this. This story's fascinating. So talk to us a little bit about the President Clinton story when you went over and met with the leader of all terrorists at the moment.
Well, this goes back to maybe 1999, 2000. I was on a temporary assignment with President Clinton, and he's going to Jerusalem. So I was one of the I was a shift leader, so I'd go over there with him and my unit, my team, and then Yasser Arafat, which I think you would remember.
You remember that name, right?
But
Rich?
a lot of people don't remember that. But he was in charge of the PLO, right?
Correct.
Palestinian Liberation Organization. So he was known as the number 1 terrorist in the world at the time. So we're in Jerusalem. He invites President Clinton to come over to Gaza Strip and the West Bank, which is a very short helicopter ride. So to our surprise, he accepted it. So we had to go over there really unprepared without doing our week-long advance to plan everything. So it was pretty tense, but because he had asked me, you ever been in a touchy situation?
Yeah.
Well, I get that question a lot.
Gunfire. I was kind of curious if you ever had to take any.
That was certainly, we were at their mercy, but I've been told that there's an Arab custom that if you're invited there by the head of the country, that no one's allowed to touch you. No one's allowed to harm you. So we went under there and we brought President Clinton in. He spent the day with Yasser Arafat. And we were supposed to leave because we had our F-16 circling the air canopy, keeping an eye on us, but we were vastly outgunned. I mean, there's no way we could have survived an attack. We knew that.
Okay.
And but it got dark, and our motorcade left before we could get in it, and so we had to kind of borrow a car to get to the last of the 4 helicopters going back to Jerusalem. Or we would have been in a very bad situation, myself and my colleague.
He used the term borrow a car there, Rich. You could probably imagine what that was.
I gave it back. Right. No bullet holes in it.
I mean, that's just fascinating. Now, when Clinton says, hey, we're going to go meet Yasser, you guys have to have been like, somebody could say no, right?
Well, I'm low level. The supervisor, I'm sure the detail leader there had to go back to Washington, D.C., and call all the way up to the director of the Secret Service and figure it out. But, yeah, I mean, the decisions obviously made way above our heads. So
yeah, understood.
We go where we're told.
Okay, so this is fascinating as well. So in 1999, you were assigned to protect Pope John Paul II during his visit to the United States. As you say, this experience is something that forever changed your life.
Right. It wasn't my plan to wear one of these white things around my neck, that's for sure. I was in my 50s, getting ready to retire. It's probably after 99. I get my dates a little bit mixed up, but it was his last U.S. visit, Pope John Paul. And I was very fortunate to get assigned to that detail. I think that was God's plan, because my plan, I'd put in for every Pope assignment because everybody said they're amazing, but I never felt like I had a rabbi at headquarters that could reach out and pull me in there and make me one of the 6 guys, agents on the shift. But I got him, and I think I was ready to retire and protect a bunch of CEOs around the world. In 2004, it was $1,000 a day, which was very good money, to fly around in Lear jets with CEOs to 5-star resorts and around the world. And that's what was my plan, but God had a different plan. He selected me to be on this detail, and then when we went through the specialized training, because of the way the world was with 9/11 and biochemicals, I got selected to be the number 1 position out of the 6 shift agents, and that was me being the closest one to the Pope during his visit.
Unreal.
So it was but once again, it was God's plan to put me in there. It had a profound effect on me I never expected, and next thing I know, I tell my wife, forget that $1,000 a day. I'm going to work for the church for free.
Well, 2 things there, Greg. I want to ask you about your wife here in a second, because that's kind of fascinating in its own right of how you maintain a family during a Secret Service gig. But I want to go back to the Pope thing. So you said that it had a profound effect on you. I get it, being around the Pope, I understand the spirituality and seeing all the energy. But what specifically had the effect? I
would say that when we would take him to places, he talked to the youth at where the St. Louis Blues play hockey, and he had his crozier, what we might call like a walking stick. And when he showed up to all the kids, and the whole arena is jam packed, you couldn't get another kid in there. And he takes his crozier, he turns it upside down, and acts like he shot one of the goals, and the kids just go nuts. That kind of stuff he could really relate. And John Paul affected. If you talk to a lot of priests, they'll tell you that Saint John Paul II, had a huge effect on their hearts. Sure, he just was that kind of guy. So. He stayed at the Archbishop's house where we worked out of, and then we did about, I'm guessing, 5-mile motorcade, whatever it was. And it was in January in St. Louis, very cold, and people just lined the streets as far as you could see, waiting all morning for this Pope just to drive by in freezing cold weather. That's impressive. And then when we got in the TWA Dome, where the St. Louis Rams play football at those days, that was packed, so that took that was 100,000, 90,000, whatever it was. And they took another 30 or 40,000 to put them in a building next to it. The turnout was just incredible. And, it wasn't just Catholics, it was Arabs, it was Muslim, it was people in Hare Krishna outfits. And you could just tell that this Pope was reaching so many people that they wanted to come out and spend a day doing it.
And I get all that, and all that makes sense, but how did that drive you to want to be a deacon?
I won't say right away it drove me, but what it did do is made me feel like I could be a better Catholic. So when I came back from that trip, I made the giant decision to become an usher at church. I really went out on a limb for that one, right? So I become an usher, and that was pretty good. I like being an usher, and I thought, well, maybe I could do some more. So I'll be a Eucharistic minister. So I went to the wrong meeting that night. They had another meeting going on at the same time, and it was the ministers of the sick. Once I got stuck in there, I couldn't get up and leave, so gotcha. I became a minister of the sick. Gotcha. Once again, probably God's plan. And then I became a Eucharist minister, and then I became a reader, and I think God was just pulling me in. I joined the men's Bible study group at St. Patrick's. They still have a great, really powerful, strong, the fishermen's group. And I was on a retreat, and the deacon on that retreat said, Greg, I think God's calling you to become a deacon. And that was a couple years later.
So it was gradual.
It was very gradual.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the other question I had there, and it had to have been difficult to raise a family during your Secret Service days with all the travel, all the other demands of the job. I know you spent some time in Honolulu. Talk to us a little bit about getting married, having a family.
Well, first of all, I did get married late in life, which helped me because I saw a lot of agents go through marital problems because we'd be in some third world country and we'd get extended a week or something, and they missed their child's wife's birthday or the kid's birthday or graduation. Yep. I saw a lot of guys, on long distance phone calls trying to, ease the situation, the marital situation, and that was tough and a lot of divorces. I didn't get married till I was later in life. I was 38.
Okay.
So that helped me survive that spell.
Got it.
And spare some poor girls along the way that, because I was gone a lot. I had a lot of free rides around the world with the Air Force, whether it's Air Force One, Air Force Two, or what they call MAC flights, where we put the armored limo and all the bulletproof stages on these big Air Force cargo planes, and we'd fly around the world, and we'd be in the back with them. But despite all those military flights, I had over 2 million frequent flyer on civilian flights. So I spend a lot of time in an airplane seat. Yeah,
I guarantee it.
65, 70 countries.
Yeah. Wow. What's your favorite?
It's hard to say which one. Certainly Australia it's a long trip, but boy, it's great when you get down there.
Yeah.
That always struck me in Austria. It was very beautiful too. Yeah, I don't know why those two stood out because there's a lot of great countries. My wife was a poor Southern Baptist girl, so she didn't know exactly what she was getting into when I said I was going to become a deacon. I thought she had a boyfriend on Monday night, but she actually was going to RCIA classes without telling me.
Really?
She converted. Yeah, so that was kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
But we have 3 children, and they all went through the Catholic school system here, the great Catholic school system here in Louisville. St. Patrick's, and then 2 to Trinity, and 1 to Assumption, and just got great educations. Got one's left in college right now. One's a lawyer. They just got really good educations through the system. So I'm a big fan of what Rich and his crew does, and give these people a chance to get that Catholic education.
Well, weren't you also a flag football coach for Pink White at Assumption? Yes.
Yes, sir. I've coached 5, but my record was 2-3. So it was great winning those 2, but you hate losing for those girls because they put so much effort into it. Such a great charity game. But I will tell you this, because when I got there, I noticed that all these girls, and even the St. Patrick's girls, and as a senior, some of them weren't making the team because they didn't have the experience these other girls did. And I found out that these other schools already had 5th and 6th grade flag football and 7th and 8th grade flag football. And I said, well, these St. Patrick kids are missing out on that opportunity. So like a dummy, I suggested to the athletic director at St. Patrick's. He goes, that's a great idea, Deacon Greg. You're the coach. I'm like, no. But yeah, so I started, I guess I could say I started flag football at St. Patrick, and they've won some championships.
Look at how explosive that is today. The grade school girls flag football program is amazing.
Well,
if you've never seen it. It's amazing.
Saved boys tackle football.
No.
Seriously, because what happened is all the girls started playing flag football, and it became so popular, the boys were like, all right, well, I want to play football too, I guess, because all the girls are playing. And a lot more boys started playing tackle football when the numbers had been just decreasing. It's really brought numbers back up.
I didn't know that.
And from a financial standpoint, it really saved the CSAA because the girls flag football brings in a ton of money.
Yeah.
The Pink White, I was there this year. It was at Trinity.
Crazy.
The place was packed. There had to be 8,000 or 9,000 people there. Easy.
There's some athletes out there too.
And it was an awesome game, by the way. Assumption won by a point.
That's right.
In the last 2 seconds. It was amazing. And the athleticism, the quickness.
That's crazy.
It's a lot more than people think. Got to go out and see it.
I've got a good friend of mine who has a daughter who played on that Assumption team that's trying to go play in college now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's
exploding.
It's really cool sport. So thank you for doing your part there. That's pretty cool over at St. Patrick. St. Patrick's been pretty dominant.
They've done pretty well. Yeah, they have done pretty good. So.
Yeah, they've done more than pretty good. All right, so in Act 3 here of your career here, Greg, so in addition to responsibilities to 2 local parishes, you also serve as chaplain for the Louisville Metro Police.
Yes.
Talk to us about that a little bit.
So Deacon school now is 5 years. I was in my 4th year, I think, and so being a police officer, a lot of the officers I worked with went on to become chiefs, and Barry Wilkerson, St. Matthews, and you got Rob Hurden in Middletown, and then so these guys are like, hey, I understand you're a Catholic deacon. You're going to be a deacon. I said, yeah, next year I'm supposed to be ordained. He said, anyway, you could be one of our chaplains because we don't have a Catholic chaplain. And I'm like, oh, really? Yeah. So I became a chaplain really a year before I got ordained. But because, I had a police background, they really wanted me to do that. So when I did it for LMPD, I was then asked to do it for Barry Wilkerson and St. Matthews Police, who's a great guy. And I was honored to do that with him and Tony Cobalt, his crew. And then Rob in Middletown Police Chief, he asked me to do it for Middletown Police. And then there's a state trooper there in Anchorage. Actually, the guy before him asked me to do it, Chris Winders. I worked with the Jefferson County Police. So all these contacts, so I'm with Anchorage, Middletown, St. Matthews, Louisville.
I'd say that keeps you busy.
And a little sheriff's department, and also Spencer County. But it's hard for me to turn down friends that, and why do you need police chaplains? Everybody thinks, well, you're there for the officers. You're just spiritual support. No, I'd say about 80% of it or more is for the victims' families, because they call a police chaplain when somebody's underneath a sheet, to be honest with you. When somebody has died and the family's showing up, the officers are like, we got to get a chaplain here right away. So
so it's less about the officers.
Absolutely. It's about the victims' families.
I don't think many people know that. No. I mean, I didn't.
Yeah.
So my dad was a police officer, retired because he said he had to go to too many people's houses and tell them that their family member wasn't coming home. He said he just wasn't cut out for it.
It's one of the worst things you do.
Obviously, for that, I mean, is that tough? I mean,
if you feel like you have a softball in your throat when you're going to say the words, because I haven't done it this year, but I'm not getting any details. But, I go up to a door at 11 o'clock at night and knock on that door, and light comes on, and here comes a dad or a mom. In this case, it was a dad. And, what you're going to tell them is going to change their life.
Oh, yeah.
That their child isn't coming home. And I'm not going to go into details. But you feel like you can hardly say the words or swallow, look them in the eye, because you've just changed. You're changing their whole life. But that's tough. It's very tough. Yeah.
Do you go up in uniform or?
Normally I try to put on like basically every department gives me a golf shirt, polo shirt with the badge and the chaplain Greg or whatever on it. I try to wear that. Sometimes I can even get my collar on.
Yeah.
And usually we ask for a uniform officer to attend with us in case they just lose it and it gets crazy. Because people react to this situation different ways. Some people just scream and roll around on the ground or just start punching holes in the walls. Other people just give you that 80-yard stare and just can't believe what you're saying. I just texted, her or him, an hour ago. They're fine.
Right.
Or, and you're like, I'm sorry to have to tell you, So that's tough. But I go to the scenes of traffic accidents, work accidents, certainly too many homicides and suicides, which are very hard. Self-inflicted suicides are very tough for people to deal with that.
Now, do you ever turn to prayer with any of the victims' families?
Always offer prayer. To this day, I think we just got a priest on board, finally. I've been doing it for 15 years now, but I would always offer a prayer, and usually the Our Father works in most situations. For and some people just don't have any religion. They say, I'm not religious, which is fine.
Sure.
But I'll offer. But, people start showing up, and I think it is a way to give them some, because they're showing up at the scene. Their loved one is underneath the sheet. The coroner's there. The officers have a crime scene. And I just offer spiritual support. And we have some good chaplains now. When I came on, there was only 3 active chaplains. Now we have at least a dozen. So different denominations from different parts of the
makes
city.
sense.
Yeah, so I have a lot of respect for what they do.
And as if you needed something else to do, another twist in your career, you became the first executive director of Kids Cancer Alliance here in Louisville. Tell our audience a little bit about CSA or CKCA, excuse me, and the great works done there.
Well, the reason I got out there was I think that I was the executive director because I missed the meeting at the board of directors. I'm pretty sure that's how it happened.
Voted you in.
He was elected.
I think it's unanimous too. But anyway, so I just try to keep the ship from crashing on the rocks for a couple of years until I was able to hire Shelby, and Shelby has just done. You've met her. She's done an incredible job. What she's done. I just was up there last week with 75 kids with cancer from their first cancer camp up in I say up there at Perryville, Kentucky, and Shelby just does an incredible. We have a really good. I've seen a lot of people come and go on the board of directors. You've known a lot of them,
right?
And people just put their hearts in it. We're volunteers, and it's been a great 25 years for me. A lot of people say, do you have a child with cancer? I said, no, I don't. But, God, I'm blessed that my kids are healthy. But we've met so many family members with cancer. And the Kids Cancer Alliance probably has one of the best parties in the summer. Well, actually, for the year. We sell out at the JW Marriott every August and raise a lot of money. And that money, because I'm still on the board, I know where the money goes to. And we vote, we vote to be very, very careful where that money goes to. And we help these families pay off bills. Like I said, we do 2 or 3 camps every year, overnight for a week. We pay for funerals when necessary, which we, hate to do that, but we're there for them. A lot of these single moms are raising a child with cancer that had to quit their jobs to pay bills or take care of their kids, so we come in there. And one of my favorite things is we give away 4 or 5 college scholarships every year for the 18-year-olds that graduate our camp. So I feel like we're really doing the right thing. We're kidscanceralliance.org. You could look what we do online and where all the money goes, and we try to impact these 120 or 30 kids in this area with cancer. If they're outside of the state of Kentucky, we never turn them down. They're always welcome at our camps.
Man.
Yeah, this is the event you're talking about at the Marriott. I mean, that's approaching $1 million. I mean, that's amazing. Oh, I was there last year. It was huge.
Well, you're a big supporter of KCA.
Yeah, I love KCA and Jay Mackin and Tom Perrone, Shelby. I mean, the whole bunch. And I'm going to do more for them. They'd like for me to do more, of course. But I'm really behind what they're doing. If you've ever seen, there was a recent news clip. I forget which station did it, that went to the camp in Perryville and interviewed one of the kids who I think was 14 and had been coming there since age 5, I think.
Got it.
And she was so eloquent, and she's doing really well, and she wants to come back to the camp, not only to sort of rekindle friendships with folks that have done the same as she, but she wants to help the new kids who have never been there before and just found out, hey, I got cancer too. And it was a great little documentary on one of the local stations, and it just spoke volumes about the important work that KCA does. They're the best.
So, Greg, talk to us a little bit about your family. We haven't really mentioned them much. Your wife Tracy and your kids. We know that they went to Catholic school and Assumption and Trinity. Talk about Tracy a little bit.
Tracy is, she's been putting up with me for over 30 years, so she's probably on the fast lane to heaven. But let's hope. That's our job, to get our family to heaven, right?
Correct.
So, I've just been blessed with a great wife and kids. I just feel like, because I see a lot of bad things in the world, obviously. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
And so, I'm grateful for all the good stuff that happens to us, too. She's in pharmaceuticals, but her specialty is rare diseases, and she fights for families whose children have Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And basically, when insurance companies turn them down for the medicine, she basically arbitrates to get that medicine paid off. And once again, you have a lot of single moms raising these kids that can't afford it. And Duchenne's muscular dystrophy is a very serious disease, and most kids, it's only boys that have this particular disease. They end up in wheelchairs in their teens, and they usually pass in their 20s. So this drug does extend their lives and lifestyle. So she fights that every day. I'm real proud of her. My older daughter's a lawyer down in Alabama, and she sues chemical companies that have knowingly polluted our water supply over the last 25 years. Knowingly dumping carcinogens instead of getting rid of them the proper way, and people coming up with kidney cancer and women with birth defects directly related to these chemicals. And of all things, Teflon and Scotchgard, something that everybody uses, but the byproducts have really been getting people sick. And ironically, I had kidney cancer. Luckily, it didn't spread. I did lose a kidney. My brother is fighting stage 4 kidney cancer now. So kind of hit home, after all this, after she got into it. And then my other son's a realtor down in Charleston, and my last son is playing volleyball at Georgetown College down the road.
Nice.
And they won the NAIA national championship last year. So, I've been very blessed.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, amidst all your various works, you found time to publish a book that's entitled Sneakin' Deacon, From Secret Service to Sacred Service. How'd you find time to pull that off? That's pretty awesome.
Well, I just recorded the stuff, and my good friend Brian Stanford, who's well known in the community for his articles on health and heart issues and all that, he was nice enough to edit it for me and organize it, and very grateful for that. I met a new friend who's my publisher here, Carol Butler, a big Sacred Heart grad, former attorney, and and she has Butler Publishing Company, and she's been awesome to work. She was awesome to work with. So God just kind of put these people in my life at the right time to make that happen. And I like talking about the book, because it goes to Kids Cancer Alliance. The second page tells you this.
So every dollar made from it goes to
all the proceeds go from Kids Cancer Alliance.
Awesome.
Yeah, I try to give them a set amount of money every year. That's between me and God. But the book doesn't pay for everything, but it certainly helps. And people like it because it's in different chapters. Police, Secret Service, the cancer with that when I lost my kidney to cancer, and then all the great things that have transpired through Kids Cancer Camp. So it's easy read, a lot of chapters.
Where can somebody find this book?
Butler Books here in Louisville has it, and I always have some in my car, so I'm going to hit you up for $20 on the way out.
I got you. I like it. I'm fascinated by these stories. Rich, anything else for Greg before we let him get out of here?
Well, first of all, thank you, and we're honored to have you on the show. And the first time I met you a couple of years ago, and we got to talking back and forth about your life and how much you care about so many other people, it just dawned on me why we've got to get Deacon Greg on our podcast.
Amen.
To share
We've talked about that for a long
stories.
time,
and you have a huge heart, and that we need more people like you in this community. So thank you for sharing your story with us.
Well, you're most welcome. I was very blessed with two great parents. Not everyone can say that. I think I was raised the right way. And then, like I said, I feel so thankful for what I have. This is my way of trying to give back, for good. And that's what, God has taught us. Jesus taught us to do, love thy neighbor. And this is a different way. There's so many good deacons, so many good clergy in this community. I always feel bad when I get honored for something. But, I can nominate a couple good deacons for the next CEF award. I got two out of St. Patrick's that are awesome, Mark and Scott Hannon.
I know them both.
I mean, they're
well.
so good. It's like the stuff they donate. So to become a deacon, I can't tell you about being a priest, but being a deacon, you got to have your heart for it because, just to give back, and you have the opportunities to do it. Yeah.
Greg, you're a model citizen, a family man of great faith, and a huge giver in the truest sense. So God bless you for joining us and supporting the works of the foundation. And Rich, as every Catholic school family in need now knows, at the Catholic Education Foundation,
the answer is yes.
Greg, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
God
Thank you,
bless you,
guys.
man.
Thank you, Rich.
You're
Thank you for what you do.